Current affairs. Conflict in Ukraine and Russia, what is happening and why? The conflict in Ukraine and Russia is a complex and ongoing political situation that involves multiple parties and has a long history. The conflict began in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea, a region in Ukraine, and supported separatist rebels in eastern Ukraine. This action led to a series of events, including economic sanctions against Russia, and a military conflict between Ukrainian government forces and the separatist rebels. The situation is ongoing, with no clear resolution in sight. The conflict in Ukraine has its roots in the 2014 Ukrainian Revolution, which led to the ousting of former President Viktor Yanukovych. This event was followed by Russia's annexation of Crimea, a region in Ukraine, which led to increased tensions between Russia and Ukraine. In response, the Ukrainian government began a military campaign against separatist rebels in eastern Ukraine who were supported by Russia. The conflict has resulted in a number of casualties and has displaced many people. There have been several attempts to negotiate a peaceful resolution to the conflict, but so far, no lasting solution has been found. The Crimean Crisis refers to the events leading up to and following Russia's annexation of Crimea, a region in Ukraine, in 2014. This annexation was widely condemned by the international community, and it led to increased tensions between Russia and Ukraine. The crisis is considered to be a major turning point in the ongoing conflict between the two countries. In Russia, the annexation of Crimea has been seen as a major victory for the country, with many Russians viewing it as the restoration of Russian territory. However, this victory has come at a cost. The annexation has led to increased international isolation for Russia, as many countries have condemned the action and imposed economic sanctions on the country. These sanctions have had a negative impact on the Russian economy, and have made it more difficult for Russia to engage with the international community. In Ukraine, the annexation of Crimea has been a major blow to the country. The loss of Crimea has led to increased tensions within Ukraine, and has fueled the ongoing conflict in the eastern part of the country. The conflict has displaced many people and has resulted in a number of casualties. It has also put a strain on Ukraine's economy and has made it more difficult for the country to develop and grow. The dispute between Russia and Ukraine is important in the context of international relations for a number of reasons. First and foremost, the conflict has the potential to escalate and become a wider regional or even global conflict. This is because Russia and Ukraine are both major players in the international community, and any military conflict between the two countries could have serious repercussions for the global political landscape. Additionally, the dispute between Russia and Ukraine is important because it highlights the ongoing tensions between Russia and the West. The annexation of Crimea by Russia and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine have led to increased tensions between Russia and Western countries, particularly the United States and European Union. This has further strained the already fraught relationship between Russia and the West, and has made it more difficult for these countries to cooperate on important global issues. Furthermore, the dispute between Russia and Ukraine is important because it has had a major impact on the people of both countries. The annexation of Crimea and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine have displaced many people and have resulted in a number of casualties. The conflict has also put a strain on the economies of both countries and has made it more difficult for them to develop and grow. The annexation of Crimea by Russia and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine have caused increased tensions between Russia and the EU, and have strained the relationship between the two. One of the main implications of the Ukraine-Russia conflict for the EU is the impact it has had on the EU's relationship with Russia. The annexation of Crimea and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine have led to increased tensions between Russia and the EU, and have strained the relationship between the two. This has made it more difficult for the EU and Russia to cooperate on important global issues, and has further isolated Russia on the international stage. Another significant implication of the conflict for the EU is the impact it has had on the security situation in Europe. The annexation of Crimea and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine have raised concerns about the stability of the region and have highlighted the potential for further conflict in the future. This has led the EU to increase its focus on security issues, and has prompted the EU to take steps to strengthen its defense capabilities. Additionally, the conflict has had economic implications for the EU. The annexation of Crimea and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine have disrupted trade between the EU and Russia, and have had a negative impact on the economies of both Russia and Ukraine. The Russia-Ukraine dispute has had a number of potential effects on the US economy. The most direct effect has been the impact of economic sanctions that the US has imposed on Russia in response to the annexation of Crimea and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine. These sanctions have had a negative impact on the Russian economy, and have reduced the amount of trade and investment between the US and Russia. This has in turn had a negative impact on the US economy, as it has reduced the opportunities for US businesses to do business with Russia. Additionally, the Russia-Ukraine dispute has had indirect effects on the US economy through its impact on global markets and the global economy. The conflict has caused uncertainty and instability in the region, which has led to increased volatility in global financial markets. This has made it more difficult for businesses and investors to make decisions, and has had a negative impact on global economic growth. This in turn has had an indirect impact on the US economy, as it has reduced demand for US goods and services and has made it more difficult for US businesses to compete in global markets. Furthermore, the Russia-Ukraine dispute has had potential long-term effects on the US economy through its impact on the security situation in Europe. The annexation of Crimea and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine have raised concerns about the stability of the region, and have highlighted the potential for further conflict in the future. This has led the US to increase its focus on security issues in Europe, which has in turn increased military spending. This has had a negative impact on the US economy, as it has reduced the amount of money available for other domestic priorities. The ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine could have a number of potential impacts on Pakistan. The most direct impact would be the potential disruption of trade and investment between Pakistan and the countries involved in the conflict. Pakistan relies heavily on trade with Europe, and any disruption to this trade could have a negative impact on its economy. Additionally, the conflict could have indirect impacts on Pakistan through its impact on the global economy. The conflict has caused uncertainty and instability in global markets, which has led to increased volatility and reduced demand for goods and services. This in turn could have a negative impact on Pakistan, as it could make it more difficult for Pakistani businesses to compete in global markets and could reduce demand for Pakistani products and services. Furthermore, the conflict could have long-term impacts on Pakistan through its impact on the security situation in Europe. The annexation of Crimea and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine have raised concerns about the stability of the region, and have highlighted the potential for further conflict in the future. This could have negative implications for Pakistan, as it could make it more difficult for Pakistani businesses to engage in trade and investment with Europe and could make the region less attractive as a destination for foreign investment. In order to prepare for the potential impacts of the conflict on its economy, Pakistan can take a number of steps. First and foremost, the government of Pakistan should monitor the situation closely and stay informed about any developments that could affect its economy. It should also be prepared to take action to mitigate the potential negative impacts of the conflict on its economy. This could involve implementing policies to diversify Pakistan's markets and sources of supply, and to support Pakistani businesses in the face of reduced demand and increased competition in global markets. The ongoing dispute between Russia and Ukraine is a complex and long-standing issue that has no easy solutions. However, there are a few potential ways to address the conflict and work towards a peaceful resolution. One potential solution to the dispute is through diplomatic negotiations. Both Russia and Ukraine have expressed a willingness to engage in talks to find a solution to the conflict, and there have been several attempts to negotiate a peaceful resolution in the past. In order to find a lasting solution to the dispute, it will be necessary for both sides to engage in meaningful negotiations and to make compromises in order to reach an agreement that is acceptable to both parties. This could involve discussions on a range of issues, including the status of Crimea, the separatist rebels in eastern Ukraine, and the role of international organizations in the region. Another potential solution to the dispute is through international mediation. The international community, including organizations such as the United Nations and the European Union, has played a role in trying to facilitate negotiations between Russia and Ukraine and to find a peaceful resolution to the conflict. These organizations can provide support for negotiations and can help to facilitate discussions between the two sides. In addition, they can provide assistance with the implementation of any agreements that are reached, and can help to monitor compliance with any agreements and to address any violations. Additionally, both Russia and Ukraine could take steps to de-escalate the situation and reduce tensions in order to prevent the conflict from escalating further. This could involve measures such as reducing military activity in the region, engaging in confidence-building measures, and working to address the underlying causes of the conflict. For example, Russia could take steps to withdraw its support for separatist rebels in eastern Ukraine and to respect Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Ukraine, in turn, could work to address the concerns of the Russian-speaking population in the region and to provide them with greater autonomy and political representation. It will require the support and involvement of the international community, as the conflict has implications for regional and global security and stability. However, with dedication and effort, it may be possible to find a peaceful resolution to the conflict and to bring an end to the ongoing dispute between Russia and Ukraine.